Hybrid Ezreal has been one of those troll builds people have tried to force for years. The problem is, League literally did not support the build. The only hybrid items really were attack speed based, which he's not very good with. You never had enough item slots, games ended too quickly, and by the time you scaled, the match was already over. But this season accidentally changed all of that. Even though Ezreal is one of the few champions in the game to scale well with both attack damage and ability power, he wasn't a real hybrid champion. If you tried to make him into one, it was like gluing a quarter of a build to another quarter of a build. You were half a champion. But the bot lane quests accidentally solved both of his problems. First, his item space issue by moving his boots to a separate slot, and then next his taking 50 minutes to scale issue by giving him more gold. So for the first time ever, you can have 3 core items for both AP and AD. For those who are more casual to the game, the way that most builds work is they come online at 3 items, and then you build supplementary stuff for that. AD champions have this much more strongly, but the same principle does apply to AP. But even though you can do that, what makes building this way actually good? Well, I realized something really stupid. League has a bunch of percentage damage amps, and almost all of them work on every damage type. Spear of Shojin, Horizon Focus, Press the Attack, Lord Doms. At some point in the game, hopefully before the enemies are at your nexus ending it, the build stops scaling normally and starts multiplying itself. The build is griefing until suddenly it isn't. The downside is that for the first 25 minutes, you are basically a slightly magical cannon minion. Okay, it's not that bad. Dusk and Dawn and the recent Lichbane buffs have made it so that going Muramana into one of those two isn't as bad as it used to be. But you are going to still be a lot weaker until your 3rd or possibly even 4th item. Alright, that's enough warning. Let's say that you've committed to playing this disaster of a build. How do you do it? Well, you have to start tier. If you don't start tier, you're going to still be stacking a tier at 40 minutes into the game, and you will be stacking your teammates' tiers about 30 minutes in. On your first base, you will buy a Sheen just like normal. At this point, you are a undercover troll. Your team will not yet know what they're in for. Next up, prioritize finishing Marumana. This gives you enough AD to comfortably last hit and keeps you from having 0 wave clear. It also helps you stack up that tier a little bit faster. From there, turn that Sheen into either a Dusk and Dawn or a Lichbane. Dusk and Dawn is better 99% of the time, but if you're against all super squishy champions, Lichbane can be good. The second you're done stacking your first tier, buy a second tier. If you forget to do this, do not try this build. You're better off just going normal AD, but with a Dusk and Dawn instead of a Triforce. Once you've finished your Sheen item, I like to go Shojin into Armor Pen. Lord Dominic's Regard is really good if you're against super tanks like Sion and Mundo, but otherwise I think Sorelja's is just better, especially because you have quite a bit of health by going Dusk and Dawn. At this point, you should finish turning your second tier into an Archangel's Staff, and then the world is yours. Build whatever magic damage item you want. I typically go Horizon Focus because while it gives ability power, it amps all of your damage. But if I feel like I can't keep my distance from the enemies, sometimes I'll do Shadow Flame for more burst, a Void Staff into a Rabadon's to have penetration and much higher AP, or if I went Dusk and Dawn, a Ravenous Hydra gives Ezreal some pretty insane wave clear. Which is good because this build falls apart if you're trying to use it while getting attacked by a bunch of minions. Other than that, you play this out like standard Ezreal. Now, unfortunately, you are still playing ADC, which means sometimes the enemy team will send the entire Avengers roster to kill you, even if it loses them the game. And other times, your team will randomly wander into the jungle like the ADHD-riddled kittens they are, and you'll die alone on midwave despite being absolutely certain someone was with you 2 seconds ago.
Where the fuck
fuck is the team? But hey, dying on mid-wave is just part of playing ADC correctly. Remember, if it happens to you, it's a team diff, you did everything right, and you just didn't have prio. One thing about this build is that because your damage is ramping up the longer you're in the fight, and you're doing more damage with your abilities than people are used to, you will get quite a few kills on people who just don't expect you to hit as hard as you do. Like, your first Q won't be anything special, but then 5 seconds later you'll hit a WQ and half of their health or more will instantly pop, which gets you a lot of surprise kills. Which is another reason I think Dusk and Dawn is nice, because fully stacking press the attack in 2 Qs or a Q and an auto means that it's very easy to always have an 8% damage boost. The Seraph's shield is also very clutch against assassins like Zed or Akali. Is it better than a Guardian Angel? Maybe not, but it's there and it does help, especially because you have so much mana. Now while this build does tons of damage, the irony of it is, this build is stronger the longer you delay buying AP items. To a point. Once you have your 3 core items, you can kinda build whatever you want, but going AP too early makes you very useless. The only reason I kept building Seraphs and another AP item earlier was because most games of League don't last until 6 items. So if I didn't do this, I would just be showing normal Ezreal footage, but with Dusk and Dawn right now. But yeah, overall, I'd say this is a very fun way to play. It makes your abilities do way more damage. It makes bursting tanks as Ezreal feel not terrible, provided you're not against something like a Scion with Ocean Soul and crazy mixed resists, which Ezreal just isn't the right character to be trying to kill this, to be honest. And yeah, overall this is a very fun build, and I even think it's good as long as you delay your AP items. This build gives you better ability damage, comparable Q damage, and if you're against a hyper tank like Malphite or Rammus that love to stack armor, I genuinely think it's just better than pure AD. It also has really good objective damage because your W can proc on monsters. Overall, give it a try and let me know what you think. League definitely isn't a game that I'm going to make too many videos on, but hey, I play it every so often. It's kind of a comfort game of mine, so yeah, here's something I've been doing in it lately and how it works, and maybe you could have some fun with it. Anyway, that's all for now. I am doing a video on the Hitman games tomorrow, and until next time, see ya.